John, you can come up here too if you'd like to speak. But basically what's going on with that tile is back in 2023, John Brothers installed a brand new tile. And during that time, so John at his private property line had what was called blocks that had 2 or 3 tiles coming into that. I guess he did use it for some sub-irrigation purposes. But in the meantime, since the new tile had been installed, we had some cases, we had some flooding and stuff. The last issue was just last, I think it was this year, where we had a flood because he had put some homes there and put the tile and stuff, got taken out. So the neighbor, when there was accidents, flooded. So since then, John and I had some discussions because he said that he would like to do this and do that to the tile. And I told him that, it's a county maintained tile and not to, and that's since we spent $25,000, on that. So I sent him a letter and all that good stuff, but he is here, I think probably to address that, and he wants that old box reinstalled. So I will let you elaborate a little bit more on what you want to do.
I apologize for interrupting. I remind you, we are live streaming this under the new law in effect, so if you would all turn your microphones back on so that the public can hear you, so that would be appreciated. And you can help them demonstrate this. At the top.
You found it. Straight wall. This whole thing started about 27 years ago. My main, all my water where I live goes out south to the Salrin Cox Ditch. Back there where the Salrin Cox Ditch ends, is north of 175 road number. This is where this main started up through there, probably was installed 75 years ago. Over the years, there was a field back there. This field was farmed by the Lions Club because the guy that owned the land just said, you farm it, what you get, you can have. Well, over the course of time, then the old clay tile started breaking down. It was patched several times, and people started neglecting it. So anyhow, 27 years ago, I had Bob House come in, or we did through the county. Came in there and we laid a new tile up through there at the north side of this hill. This hill had pine trees planted across it, but the tile was open. So they put this new main up through there for us. Anyhow, then nobody really kept it up. Trees started growing up back in there. The Lions Club people that were doing this got old enough, they quit farming it. So by the time, that I realized what all was going on, we had several trees back there growing roots in. So we've had the DeSabatines out there a couple times and rooted that out. Finally, it got to the point, I came over here for a drainage board a few years ago, and I was really surprised how many of my neighbors showed up to more or less represent me that day. They decided to go to the outlet there where on the south side of these pine trees. There are all these pine trees out, scalped that. John's brothers laid a new 12-inch solid tile up through there. Well, Pipers there, they've put in a side tile for them for a catch basin to help out, get some of the excess water out if it gets high in there. Well, last year when it got dry, I went to Bradco and got a plug to put into this tile. Anyhow, it did its job. Then I guess I overlooked taking it out. So the water built up over the winter, went back there in March, and oh man, there's 2 kayaks back there on Piper's land. Them kids are having a good time back there. Water was 6-8 inches deep over top this structure. Mr. Failer here, he's a neighbor to this land of mine. He came and we got that plug out of there. Anyhow, I sub-irrigated over the years. It's helped out my neighbors there, that their yards and gardens and even their wells. Right now, we've got 2 shallow wells on neighbors right now that are struggling because water table down that much for drought. So anyhow, what my deal is, I'd like to have that structure put back in. I can control it myself easier than trying to deal with a plug in there, because which I don't think it would anyhow. That I want to be in accordance, done right. But I was talking to Mike Teedy there a while ago. There is actually a square structure that could have been put in there that could have regulated that Bradco sells, but my structure is perfectly okay. And where it was setting north of this fence line or north of the new structure, it was setting about 7-8 foot north of there. I was gone that morning when they came in there and laid that new tile. When I got back, they already had my structure out of there. I wasn't argue with Earl about putting it in right then. I just had to get the work done. It was getting done. Now, I talked to Earl about this a little bit this morning. So up to you. The old structure back in, or this one that they put in replaced with can be. James Baylor here is one of the got land that's involved in shallow wells.
Is that something that county would have to pay for, or would that be on his? He just need permission to do it?
Granted, when, after that flooding, I went ahead and had John Rose this way, if something like that would happen again, it would not flood them out, because they've been flooded out probably 2 or 3 times since this new tile was put in. So I didn't want that to happen to them. So that was the whole purpose. Yes, the victims paid for that. It was very much for that. I don't, in my opinion, think that it should maybe reinstall it since we did it. So, because where I'm coming from is I don't want any more flooding to the, especially on the neighbors and stuff, because I mean there is a tile that goes into that goes to the east that will go towards like houses like that as well. And they have some other issues too. Previously. So, I mean, I suppose that if he wanted to do something with sub-irrigation, I think it has to be designed for sub-irrigation and be certified, I guess we call it Cox, to, if he's allowed to do this. And so that it can be regulated where if there's actually like holes in there, so say like, yeah, we wouldn't have to worry about taking the flow or anything out. Or like if it were to flood, and then this thing water would be able to go away. So it should not cause any issues.
What's your recommendation?
So if you were to do it to the north of this anyway, where do you want to locate? Are you going to replace it? Are you replacing it? Or are you putting this on your side?
There's plenty of room there north of this structure. Drainage paid for. We can go north of there 6-8 feet and put my box right down in there. And my box is water that would overflow, would go in the structure, go on out. Over the years when I ran this, it was like 3 2x6 penetrated tongue and groove boards, and I had to bring the water up 18 inches. Water would go over the top of it and then go out. I got a tile from the north, comes into the north end of this box, how I had it be behind the boards. It affects like up towards failures and Ricks, Jeff Stahlbaum. Anyhow, off of that tile, there's a tile that goes east towards it. But the reason that tile was put in, Jeff Stahlbaum come to me when he built his house there. He had to the Board of Health, I guess, say to get all these permits that he had sufficient drainage, like for his beach bed and all. I said, I have no problem with that, and I pay for the tile going property about 100 feet. Sabatine's put that in. I never did see a bill, so I guess Jeff paid for that. But right now, Jeff and Rick and whoever all over that way would like to have a little 18, 15 inches. That would never flood anybody out. And west down through there, another tile, and it's spring fed. Right now, it's pretty well done. That tells you how dry it is. There, that water's coming out of that spring out in the land to the north there as it's coming east. But I look at the fact of conserving water. You know, we talked about conservation here this morning. I can hold some of that water back certain times of the year and take less stress on Cox Ditch.
My stance. Tile and your neighbors.
The deal that happened this winter, that was totally neglected. Could have got that plug out of there in December. But one of the flooding issues we had early on this put in, you put that in and there's enough surface down on, get a big rain. Eric Johns came back in there and cut this structure down level with dirt there. That was causing some of the flooding. That was one of the.
What is the anticipated cost to put that box in? Any idea?
I talked to Friday.
No, we didn't discuss any. I'd say if they in $300-400. Practical has a device. Carpenters. Right in with unless that cord was designed with problem. James is with us out of there. I can't believe how much pressure water has on something. I would rather myself, so I could control it better, have my own box back. Something similar that I can handle easier than trying to get a plug or slide gate structure. My box is in pretty good shape yet. I gotta do a little. Says you were busy. You're soon to.
So Jenny, again, what would the detriment be of him putting that back in?
If he puts it back in, I suggest that it is designed for sub-irrigation purposes. I would be okay with that because other than that, I mean, I can't list it. I mean, Kempis had actually really tile. The intent was it's supposed to be 100% perfect looking tile and it has a lot of seeds. I mean, we have issues count.
So hopefully now it'll be that way.
And the one that you have, John, is a Fratco tile? Or I mean, it's a Fratco box?
No, we
It is
built
not.
this ourselves.
You built it, okay. So Jenny, you would rather see it be a Fratco
I
box?
would actually.
If I'd been there that morning, Eric laid that tile up through there, I would have told him just leave my box in place. But Earl came in there with his own and it was sitting there a week before. Did this. I thought, well, I don't want to argue with Earl. You know, always got along with say this, but we're related a little bit. But anyhow, I thought, well, Earl's got this design. We'll go with what he's got. You know. But if I'd been there that morning, I would have argued with him a little bit about leaving my box in. Their new structure could have fit right in between Piper's nice line, my old box. Wouldn't even be here talking about it.
Mhm. And Jenny, you're saying the cost of that Fratco box, you don't know it right now?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No idea.
Is that something we can look into
Yeah, I
prior to making that decision? Is what is the cost of the box and what would it cost John to put it in? And at that point can he work with the county to maybe put that in if it's going to benefit other residences as well or other properties?
Fratco.
And you can do that, Jenny, look into that with Fratco. Okay.
I don't see any problem with them doing it, just we get the price.
I agree.
Yes.
At this point, I don't know if I can afford the expense of whatever Fratco's box. I could expense if I have to pay to have this done, putting my old box in and putting it in properly. John's has did enough of this kind of work. I'm sure when they put it in, they would be satisfied with it, or they.
Well, maybe we can do them.
We are.
Find out how much the box is. Okay, does that work for you, John?
At this point, if further figures, it needed to have been put in 6 weeks ago, but
Okay.
Meeting at a time.
that,
One meeting at a time.
I guess.
Thanks, John.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
your time this morning.
Rudy,
Oh,
I believe he's in Buffalo this morning.
oh, no. Scott?
Okay. No, Rudy.
So we'll go on to the next. For NIPSCO, I emailed you. For Franceville Crossing Project, conducting with. I sent that over to you guys. Questions or that basically. See if you guys are okay with their plans. I did not. I mean, normally, like when they do things, as long as they do not hinder, you know, or if they do, they have to pay.
make it right.
Yeah. Knock on prior, you know, prior.
We need a motion then to let NIPSCO go ahead.
I'll second the motion.
We got a motion and a second for NIPSCO to do their ditch work. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved claims. Looks like we got a hard marathon, the rest of the ball spray.
I've gone out and
I'll make a motion to approve the claims for July 21st, 2025.
Got a motion and a second to approve the claims. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Approved minutes from June 16th.
The minutes.
Motion.
I'll second the motion.
We got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from June 16th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Other business.
a couple things. So the first thing is that next month, we are having a
Huh.
I have those they're mailed out last Friday.
Yeah. James Walls ditch, is that
Van Buren.
here?
To find you guys on that. Second. Regarding, I've been at shots of setbacks and stuff. So you guys can take a copy here. Finding, maintain at last Wednesday. Myself,
Stay.
it ended up going Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Whatever
I'm
day it
trying-
was last
It's
week.
fine.
I was here.
Mhm.
Out, myself, Joe with the VS, and then construction. Yeah, those are just my findings. Yeah, some are right on 75. On that, my discussion at that time, I was asked if some of those areas were approached, allow some exceptions. And I said, I would like to see all fencing 75, no matter what, because we're making one exception, it's one after another. So, he said, understood, and then
Who said understood, Jenny?
Casey.
Okay.
And so then, I heard that harmless. Writing them. I personally, from the meetings I've had with regarding all of this, going out there, my impression has been, okay, we'll just have to move the fence. Harmless agreements. So my stance is B, client and B. That's how I look at it. Even if it's off a little bit.
It's got to be 75 feet to get the equipment.
I agree, yeah.
And that's the big issue. Get a long reach hoe in there. It's 5 feet. And that ain't much.
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, you're like,
Yeah, but
time you sleep around and
it's 75 feet. We got to stick to There's,
So I do know that Tim is here. I did tell him that we were address that. One other thing too, and I know they're looking at that is, fine, I had asked if. So when this was all set up, I said that I wanted all ditches, main or not, to abide by the 75. And now that wording is being construed a little bit, and so they obviously don't agree with me, so they're saying private ditches. So I had asked for that to be clarified. I think we are.
But our ordinance does state
It
all
says-
ditches.
It says internal.
The
So
ordinance
that's-
says internal.
well, we really don't have any authority over private.
Well, the whole thought process, say like if you. Maintenance.
They'll have to make 75 feet. They'll have, just like they do the road. If they want to make the ditch on maintenance, they will. I mean, like the roads, you got to bring the roads. If you want a private road brought up to county road for maintenance, you got to bring it up to the county specs. But-
Right, you're supposed to.
I can
And-
speak to this issue because I'm actually the one who used the word internal in that context, so I can at least tell you what my intent was when we presented that to the planning commission and the commissioners. If I may. It's
Very simply, so we know that there is a 150-foot setback from property lines. And property line might be through a ditch. In putting that in, I was thinking, for example, my parents' property that is in the Mammoth project, there is a stub ditch that does not split the field completely in two, but partially splits it in two. It is not a county, I don't know if it's county maintained or not, but it is not a property line. But whether or not it's county maintained, obviously there will be need for maintenance by the private sector or under the county supervision. And so that was, when I put that language in there, meant to include any ditch that is in a parcel that is included in a solar project, whether or not it is county maintained, whether or not it is a property line, there should be a 75-foot setback to allow for proper clearance, as well as any filter strip that might be planted there allowing for that. So any ditch that is on the property, when I wrote that language for the plan commission and commissioners consider, was assumed to be included in that.
Okay, so that was my understanding. That's what we wanted, all ditches, regardless whether they were.
Maybe
maintained or
maybe
not.
internal wasn't unclear, would have been meant internal to the property and not an external property boundary. That's all it was, that was meant to distinguish, is that even if it isn't a boundary line ditch, it still should be treated with the 75-foot setback.
So your interpretation, your intent with the word internal was any ditch inside the solar
Yes.
project.
Regardless
That
of
is
whether
your
it is a
internal.
county maintained ditch or not. If it is there and there may be a need for filter strip clearance or other access, that 75-foot should be there.
You willing to stand up in court on that?
If I have to, sure.
Okay, good.
That was my intent. Like I said, I put that word in there when I was
That's
working
Jen-
with
that
the
was
plan
Jenny's
commission and the
intent
staff.
too. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Tim, what do you think? You're our attorney.
But it says internal
And the
ditches.
reason for that was because at the time, the 100, we weren't expecting the whole 150 property line setback to apply that. We just wanted to apply the same 75 foot that is required of county maintained ditches.
I think you heard it from the guy who voted, and that was the intent of the vote. And you make it pretty clear that this is the definition that you gave it, that it means all ditches. Essentially means all ditches, right?
Yes. Yep.
So as long as you make that the definition of what internal means, you carry that through. Shouldn't have a problem.
So you're speaking, go back and move those fences that are within 75 feet of the ditches. That's what his intent was. That was Jenny's interpretation, which means they move any fences that are currently out of compliance. Okay.
Do they have fences up by some?
Mhm.
And because and I do, they stopped fencing. Out. Private ones.
landowner or the developer? What's the landowner?
I haven't talked to any. Our actually says,
But do we really have any authority over private?
well, if the landowner comes
I think that's a good point, to back up what Jenny was saying. I don't know that if it's not a maintained ditch, and you don't have a statutory easement, I think you can have a statutory easement of 75 feet on a maintained ditch, that's one thing. But what you're saying is that you should apply an easement to all ditches. So then the question becomes, that's an easement for the solar company, but is that all, since it's not a maintained ditch, does that make it fall under the purview of the surveyor to be able to enforce it? I think it would have to then.
So I guess.
What I would say in follow-up is specifically regarding fences, as we've pointed out, as we've discussed in the past, there, prior to the most recent updates to the UDO, fencing was not explicitly defined as part of the CSES. Now, Jenny pointed out what the decommissioning agreement said, but the previous definition did not include that. And we have that section, that line in, I think, chapter 5 of the ordinance that says that fences are allowed within.
Yeah, we have a specific ordinance for solar, Nathan. So
No, we do
anything
not actually. We
outside
have a
of,
unified development ordinance that includes a chapter on solar, but it is
exactly,
all.
that chapter
They do not supersede, no. One part of an
I
ordinance
disagree.
cannot supersede each other. They are all part of a unified ordinance.
No,
But my point
that's
is that
ridiculous.
at the very minimum, any component like a solar panel, anything part of the generation would, I think, regardless of whether or not we have a county maintenance easement, would be subject to that 75-foot setback, just as like the ordinance allows the county to say you have to have 15 feet of separation between your house and your barn so that the fire department has access with fire trucks as one of them is on fire. I don't know if the surveyor's office has any authority to enforce that 75-foot setback regarding fences because it's not a county maintained, but we certainly have the authority under the state's police powers for zoning that we can say we're not going to allow any permanent fixtures within a 75-foot setback, just like we can say you can't put a pole barn in the front yard of your house within your 10-foot or 40-foot setback. So the question of ambiguity regarding fences aside and the surveyor's authority, certainly I think, Mike, that the county through the commissioners, plan commission, and building inspector have the authority to say you couldn't put solar panels within 75 foot of the top of a ditch bank, even if it's not maintained, because you have that authority with the placement of buildings and structures for the general welfare and other public purposes the state law gives the Board of Commissioners if you adopt planning and zoning. The fencing, I'm going to steer clear of that and the potential contradictions in the ordinance, but in general, yes, you have that authority to enforce setbacks, even if it's not a county maintained ditch. It might just be that it has to be the building department that is enforcing that and not the surveyor's office.
So you're saying Carla would have to enforce that, the 75 feet?
Yes. If
I'm
it's not a
confused.
county maintained ditch, if it is just, as we call it, an internal ditch, if it's a non-maintained ditch that exists, that 75-foot setback would be Carla's responsibility to enforce, I think, and not Jenny's, because she doesn't have authority over non-county ditches.
That's about as clear as mud. I'm sorry. I don't know if anybody else feels confused right now, but that did not clear anything up for me. Nathan, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Sorry. If it is not a ditch that is a county maintained ditch, then my understanding is the surveyor's office and drainage board do not have authority over that. Unless,
What's your opinion, Jenny?
or
so I do not have the authority to go in and clean that ditch.
okay.
That is correct. Now say though, if you came to me and asked me to look at that ditch, thinking about this petition, then yes, I would still have the right of entry to go
Sure.
look at that ditch.
But in general, you don't have the right to enforce a 75-foot ditch easement if we do not have one in place because it's a county maintenance ditch, correct? You can't.
Well, there again, my stance on this in the beginning was solar. Because
Sure.
everyone being about it. how to write things up and what done. So that was the in the beginning was I said all ditches of that being petitioned. So in other words, say for instance, if you're saying this, that if someone in the solar area on a private ditch has fencing or is in the solar area, but then yet say on the other side, the other person doesn't. That other person.
Well, I mean, if there's a petition, I would say, but I guess to clear it up, if it is a ditch in a solar project, is not currently a county maintained ditch and there's no petition, at the very least, it's probably a joint responsibility between the surveyor and building inspector because Carla's job is to enforce setbacks. And it's, in this case, not an official county drainage easement that's being enforced. It is a county zoning setback that's being enforced.
Well, if I already had a fence up as a developer, I'd just put a tile in and close the ditch.
What do you mean, Mike?
Huh?
What do you mean, close the ditch?
It's my ditch. I'd put a tile in so it's still draining and close it. It's my ditch.
Jenny?
Well, if it was only on your property, but if it's others, I mean, they have tiles going in too, so that causes a problem for.
He's using my ditch, you're telling me?
If it is strictly not on,
It's my
no,
ditch.
if the whole ditch is,
It's mine to do with what I want.
is it strictly on your property?
Strictly on my property.
No one else's tiles going in?
If they are, they're trespassing in their water on my property. Right?
I don't know. I never considered the ditch that runs between my house and my in-laws our ditch. I always considered that the county ditch. I don't think we can take ownership of ditches. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Well, if I dug it, it's my ditch.
Different ditches, rocky ditches. One is the county. That is.
If that has happened in circumstances, where they come to the drainage board, they cannot hinder else. Obviously, they tile.
That's fairly common.
Some do it, but yeah, but I mean,
For
still have to have
irrigation,
permission
more
to
than
do
not.
that.
I mean, that's what they did for irrigation different. Close the ditch so put a tile.
But this is exactly why, if the intent from Nathan and Jenny was any ditch within the solar array or solar project has to have 75 foot, because when you start to do hold harmless agreements and, well, this person's going to work with his neighbor and come up with their own, there's no, you have no consistency. You've lost control of all of it. And when we're talking the number of projects and the number of acres we're talking about, we cannot be looking at each one. Now, number two, Jenny, are you going to be responsible for hanging on to these hold harmless agreements over the next 10 years? And where's the company going to be when it needs to be, when we need to refer back to a hold harmless agreement? They could well be long gone at this point. So the easy fix is, if the ordinance states, and you agree, Nathan, and you agree, Jenny, that the intent was 75 feet in all of the solar project areas, that's what it is. That is the safest, most protective route for the county to take. That was the intent.
Yes, I mean, Joe was out there. I mean, I lean on Tim with questions, concerns and stuff, like I said, answers. I don't really know. I suppose you have Tim come up okay, yeah, no, I've been working closely with them.
Well, I think he needs to get with Tim and make sure they have 75 feet.
Well, I believe it's been directed to the county attorney, right? Yes. Well, I'm not sure who else is in the.
Well, it
I'm sure Mammoth
should be Tim too, correct? Tim's a drainage board attorney. Why does Ayler have anything to do with this? I've discussed it with him too, and he's a little concerned that it was handed to him. I'm going to be honest. Why is the drainage attorney not the one doing this, and why is it being passed off to me? So I do know there was concern there. You have. This was yesterday. Okay, good. Tim, you're on.
Hello.
I don't know what,
So
there's many items that was discussed.
I guess the two issues I asked for.
Yep.
I know you had passed that along.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
We're tracking that.
Okay. And hopefully anticipate.
That is the goal.
Okay.
Yes. Things, know what exactly we need to document, follow back up with the developer. In any areas that there is a discrepancy, we will sit down, work, come up with resolution, and then present it to the proper channels so that the revised plans can get approved.
Now, just, are you under the same impression that I am, that our conversations, site visits, that 75, if the fencing needed to be moved, that was the, I walked away with.
That was the impression. There's been other talks with the developer that they're looking into other things if they cannot make the change. And so that's what they're looking at now. They're going back to their drawing board, engineering things, and if they feel that they cannot due to a financial commitment or some other needs, then they will present it to the board for approval for that request.
And that opens a whole can of worms. Jenny, I mean, you would agree, it's 75 feet or it's not, and now we're going to come up with some type of agreement every time it's violated, and that is not protecting the county.
That was, I know, like I said, the question that I was asked out.
So
That's my stance. It all did. Couple of feet, it shouldn't, in my opinion. I don't know. I think you kind of got, did you get, so,
Yes.
copy? And what we sporadically stopped and thoughts and everything.
Yep, I sent him back out later last week.
Oh,
Jenny, will you also email, Jacob? And I'm not sure what Tim has said that you guys are working together, but email them and let them know again that they need to be moved 75 feet. Because Tim, what I'm kind of getting from you is we're working on a negotiation here to make this work. And Jenny is trying to say firmly, it needs to be 75 feet. I don't think there's.
So let me explain something. The issue lies that the county approved the plans as is. And so now the county is going back on what they had approved. Oh, this isn't right, you need to change it. So in order to do that, there's engineering costs that they have to go into. They have commitments on how much financial solar they're going to be selling off. So if they have to reduce their solar panels, start impacting that. And so what jurisdiction does the county have to revoke their approved plans?
So here's my question. These plans were approved by you, Jenny?
the agreements were not approved. I did not sign.
I'm not talking the agreements, I'm talking the plans they were submitted for training for.
See, and that's where I guess I'm lost because, no, I don't remember any plans. I mean, yeah, we saw some. That was pretty much it. I know, like I said, in the beginning, that was the whole thing because I know writing all this, I think me, Carla, and Gary had concerns. Hey, with time restraints and stuff, it's really hard to follow. We got to do all this. Like, we'll be all right. We'll be on top of it. But, you know,
Yeah.
all kind of.
Well,
Spiral.
Kevin, Chuck signed the plan.
Do you know who signed the plans? Tim, I would have to pull them out and look at them.
I don't know who, no one signed the plans. The plans are signed by the engineer. They get approved by the drain. So I don't know when that approval happened. That was prior to us.
Jenny, can you look at it?
That would have been probably late 24.
One of the reasons, and I want to clear something up in James too, one of the reasons it may appear like I took things back over to the county attorney is because I looked up and read the statute, and I think a lot of this is going to come down to these agreements that the county attorney prior to Mr. Rayleigh was involved with, and I wasn't. And, you know, other than we've had some presented, but the statute reads, and this is IC 36(9.733). The owners of land over which the right of way runs may use the land in any manner consistent with this chapter and the proper operation of the drain. Permanent structures may not be placed on any right of way without the written consent of the board. It's not that they can't be placed, but they can't be put there without the written consent of the board. Now, when I read the statute, and I think I may have even had a previous blurb of lease or something, I was concerned that maybe there had been some written consent interpreted some way or another. But I've never been involved, you know, the drainage board attorney and the drainage board had limited, almost non-existent exposure to the whole solar release process through Cox Ditch, until it came to us when Mr. Lane and Mr. Mellon were here, and I think they came, there was two times that agreements came in that I reviewed with Mr. Tankersley, and it came in for signing by the drainage commissioners at that time. So that was in my recollection, and it just kind of, but that wasn't any complaint. Those were leases, okay, those were leases, but there was not any plan to sign off on. So I just think this gives it a little more gray area, actually, because the statute does allow, but it has to be specific permission given by the drainage board before you can put a permanent structure. I was supposed that, in just speculating, I would suppose that there could be times when a permanent structure would be required to be built within 75 feet of a drain, whether it's a ditch or whatever it might be, and that they would have to have a plan on how you're going to do this and how to clean up and what side of the ditches you're going to use. I think that's what the statute contemplates when it says get permission from the board before you put a permanent structure. That's, you know, don't hang your hat on any one thing I just said. I'm just trying to help guide this along so that we don't get hung up on too many things. But that's where I was when I contacted and spoke to Jay Taylor about, hey, I really think, you know, not that I'm dodging a bullet as a drainage board attorney, but I think this needs to be all in one attorney's, county attorney's basket, whether it's yours or mine. It needs to stay with one, and I'll do whatever I need to do with the drainage board attorney, don't get me wrong. But for the purposes of working this issue out, I think you need to stick with one legal advice on this, and he pretty much agreed. But you know, I'm still going to be here, whatever it takes. But that's where I was coming from. I wasn't trying to pass the buck. But after reading the statute, this is what we have to go, and then combine that with the lease. I'd rather have the county attorney manage the lease question because I have no familiarity with it at all, and I should be coming on with that. So.
Prior to, that should have been.
There were areas, certain areas in these ditches that they knew that they were approached.
So it appears that the plans may never have been presented to the drainage board. On the plans, it shows where everything's at. It doesn't call out, like you said, it doesn't call out when they're in violation of the 75 feet.
So Tim, you're saying you've seen the plans and you've seen the 75 feet, or you've seen the encroachment areas
I'm saying
those
you can
plans?
zoom in and you can see where they were fencing. And
Closer
so-
than 75 feet, though, I'm asking.
Well,
And so their interpretation, though, is the solar equipment. And so it's going back to that fence, solar equipment definition. But in terms of the drainage floor, not, I know there's written verbiage in there that if it's presented within so many days it's approved. But if it was never voted on by the drainage board, what authorization does the developer have to move forward? Question.
I can't answer that one today.
And I think that's what we need to
Right.
look further into is how do we react and how do we move forward from here? Not feeling comfortable with how it was presented to the drainage board and any proper.
Well,
Okay.
I'd tell them not to put any fences, 75 feet of any ditches until we get it. Okay.
And that has to come from you, Jenny, correct? Or that comes from
Well, if it's going back to what Nathan was discussing.
building inspector?
Yeah, if it's building inspector. So we'll advise them and let them know that the county's looking into this. And we'll advise them not to do this. Because if they continue and the county comes back and says, hey, the plans have been, we need to revise the plans, then that's on their dime to move it. I don't think so. I will move forward with it and, however Carla wants to handle it on her side. If it's I don't know her new process.
Yeah.
I will definitely relay that.
Jenny, yeah.
I agree.
Jenny, you need to.
Okay.
Now, well, I only, Casey, I've even,
Casey, yeah.
I would include.
I would,
right, besides everybody else.
Mhm.
include Tim.
Okay. I don't have anything else. Jenny, go ahead.
I think that was it, but as far as,
Thanks. I don't know what their plan of attack is. So they're looking at their next steps and no agreement will be drafted.
And I have heard that those agreements were being looked into for presenting, and my concern was we didn't authorize Jacob Baylor to expend time and money writing these agreements. So who's writing them and by
This would
whose?
come from the developer.
This would come from the developer.
Yeah.
Okay. He wouldn't have anything to do with that.
Practice.
Okay.
And until that request is approved, the county attorney.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Now, back to the fence issue, what are we telling the developer in terms of the fence with internal distance? Are we asking them to stop? Are we telling them to stop? What is the stance we're taking?
telling them.
Telling them to stop? I just don't know what jurisdiction we have.
No, you wouldn't. It would be Carla, correct?
Yeah.
Carla and Jenny, or a combination of the two, would have to make that clear to them. Yeah, we wouldn't put that on you.
Okay.
I don't think you have the authority to do
Thank you.
that. You're welcome.
Yep, just making sure. And I just
Mhm.
want to make sure I'm telling them what to expect.
Okay.
More discussion with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Anything else, Jenny?
Public comment? Do we have public comment on this one or not? No. Do public comment on this, Jen? I'm looking at the other form.
Yeah, I guess we don't normally, I mean,
Okay. All right, I was looking at the other, at our other one, but you want to ask public comment?
Is there any public comment? We got a motion on the floor to adjourn.
Going back to the ordinance, if you look in chapter 4.2, I think it clearly says an anything to do with solar is in chapter 7 and 8. So chapter
Yes,
4,
anything solar specific, that doesn't mean that other language in the ordinance doesn't apply to it.
well, I disagree with that.
Part of the, to refer that specific
Yeah.
chapter, without chapter 4, there is no reference to where solar is or isn't allowed. That's not in chapter 7 or chapter 8. That's in chapter 4.
And that is correct, but it doesn't include chapter 5.
It's still a unified development ordinance.
That
Everything,
I think you need to review.
chapter 2 applies to solar as well. There's an entire process outlined in chapter 2. So if that's not explicitly listed in 4, that is still applicable. to
2, 4, 7, and 8.
So it's not just 7 and 8, it's now 2, 4, 7, 8. That's a very
That is
arbitrary way
correct.
of looking at the
But it's not
unified.
chapter 5.
It's a unified development ordinance, not a, everything is discrete.
With chapters.
Yeah, but chapter 5 also talks about lighting requirements, that the lighting cannot go past the
Yes.
project. So are you going to apply that lighting restriction to the solar?
If there isn't
project?
explicit lighting restrictions in chapter 7, yes, chapter 5 applies, that's my point. The entire ordinance applies whether it's something relevant.
And the buffering with the parking lots and all that.
Yeah.
Well, then it's not going to be very helpful.
Well,
But chapter 7 and 8 do have explicit things that would then cancel out chapter
well, they
5.
don't cancel, it's a matter of interpretation.
Jeez.
Administration
Then why write it?
to interpret the ordinance.
No.
Yes.
Okay, I got a motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.